Hi, Liz. Welcome to the Power Women Wellness Podcast. I'm very excited to have you here. How are you today?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing so great. I'm excited to be with you again. I loved having you on our podcast. So this is a fun little reversal of roles. Yeah, I'm excited.
I know. I love it. I've gotten so much good feedback. I'll have to link that in our episode in the show notes because I've gotten so much good feedback from people who have listened. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad.
Yes, people loved your episode. I mean, I loved recording it and your episode did fantastic. So we loved sharing the whole conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's so awesome to talk about. And now I love what we're doing here is just diving behind the scenes. And you're so funny because I'm like, oh my gosh, you'd be great to be on. I'd love to interview you. And you're like, I don't even know if do I fit this? I'm like, hell yes, you do. So start off with telling us who you are, what do you do? What have you grown with Homegrown? We'd love to hear it.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Liz Haselmayer. I am married and have 3 daughters. We homeschool. Our daughters' ages are 2.5, 6, and 11. So quite the range, like about 5 years in between each kid, which honestly, I highly recommend. I love the larger age gaps, but it wasn't super intentional, but the way it happened is beautiful and I love it. So yeah, 3 daughters. We homeschool. And so a couple years ago, I was like, I need something to help talk to Sophia, my oldest daughter, about food and nutrition. But like I had learned over many years of struggling with a debilitating eating disorder that the USDA food guidelines just like weren't for me. And they absolutely weren't going to be something that I was going to pass along to my girls. And so I was like, I need like some real food nutrition curriculum. And unfortunately at the time, or maybe fortunately, maybe this is a good thing, but there was nothing on the market. And, I have a background, like I have a master's degree in communication. So I'm like, I have a lot of writing experience, a lot of like research paper experience. So, I have some design experience and I was in marketing for a while. So I was like, okay, I feel like I have the skill set to bring together the information I already know, but I need it in like a comprehensive, beautiful format so that she can like walk through this like really simple curriculum and learn about things like raw dairy and sourdough and ferments and like what are the food groups and the importance of animal products and nourishing foods versus nutrient lacking foods and get away from some of this like good food, bad food dichotomy. And so I basically created that, launched it in April of 2021. So we're like a year and a half old now. And since then have put out, I think 6 other products. And we actually just launched our most recent one this week. So yeah, we're really like a real food education company. It started with that first nutrition curriculum and then kind of expanded because we were like, well, adults need this information too. Like it's so hard to teach our kids if you don't know. And so we moved into more like meal planning things. We have a what's for dinner and a what's for breakfast meal guide that just talk about those things. And so yeah, we're really trying to help whole families like embrace real food at its core.
I love that. And so true. I'm sorry, I'm having a little coughing fit. So if you hear a little, my throat, I made the smoothie and I inhaled like a cacao nib, like,
oh no,
did not mix well. So I love that you created that because it's so true. It really starts with the home and especially moms who are typically the ones that are creating these meals and making these changes. And I think it's so interesting too, to see how my kids have grown and seen other kids who don't have the same thing and like palates are so different. And it's just, I don't know, we've kind of got let off from what real food is. So I love that you are providing those resources and that you kind of, how you fell into it too. I love that.
Totally fell into it. Like in the most obvious way now looking back, but if you would have told me 5 years ago, this is what I would be doing, I'd be like, insane. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Do you in the past, do you have any things in your health that kind of came up for you, whether it's like official diagnoses or just things that you struggled with that you saw improve with the change in your diet?
Yeah, I always used to just say the words, I have a terrible immune system. Like I just accepted that. I would get like pneumonia in the middle of winter time or in the middle of summertime. I would get flu every season. Like 6 months after I had my first daughter, I got mono. I had a tooth infection from getting my wisdom teeth taken out. I had a toe infection and then I got strep throat all within like 6 weeks of each other. Literally, I went to my general practitioner, and they were like, "What's going on with you today?" And I listed out everything. She's like, "Oh, we've been talking about you. Like, we're trying to figure out what's going on with you, why your immune system is so compromised." Looking back, it probably had a lot to do with the fact that I was like a single mom. I was 19 years old in college, working full time, and wasn't supporting my body nutritionally, and had come off of like 5-ish years of being bulimic. And so I was very nutrient lacking. So combine all of those like high stress, high trauma life experiences within like a year or two time frame. And of course, like my body's just falling apart. And so, but the funny thing is, I just accepted poor health for myself, but it wasn't until my second daughter was born and she had a birth defect that I started asking questions like, okay, what is going on here? So she was born with bilateral clubbed feet, which is, very correctable. And at the time we were given misleading information about it. We were told like she would never walk and it was going to be this whole thing and she might have spina bifida, poor information and very bad delivery, but none of those things were true. And so she is now corrected, but it was that experience that led me to ask more questions. And so like I went back to work full time when she was 3 months old and couldn't really handle the like pumping thing. And so I just transitioned her to formula and she was really not doing well. And I took this massive, huge risk and started to make my own infant formula. And like, if you say that now, it's like gasped, but I did so much research and I did so much like looking into it. I followed this recipe that was written by like a PhD scientist. Like everything in that recipe is designed to mimic human breast milk. And to me, it was like real foods that I was adding in. I was using whole raw dairy and supplementing, like adding gelatin in and different quantities of different types of fat to mimic breast milk. To me, that made way more sense than like this powdered corn syrup laden infant formula at the grocery store. Like even
I mean, what did like olden days? I always think like what in the olden days, granted breastfeeding, but like what if a mom couldn't? Maybe
they would
I
use
guess
raw milk every time.
Yeah. That's why I've always been like curious about that. Maybe I guess other moms would breastfeed who were breastfeeding, that's potential, but I'm like, no, there had to be something.
Totally. And so that really kind of comforted me too. Like I said, I did a ton of research because if I'm going to take the risk and, start my family off on raw dairy, including with my infant, I need to get my facts straight. And so that's how I dove into the real food space, was because I knew it was necessary for me to understand the history and the science and the risk versus benefits before giving that to my daughter when to be a responsible mom. And she thrived on it. And it was like the best decision we ever made with our third daughter. When she transitioned off of nursing, like we did the same thing with her around like 6 to 7 months. And gosh, like both of those kids just absolutely thrived. So I'm currently right now not dealing with any health issues. I'm more in like optimization stage of life, optimize my sleep, optimize my energy, my strength, my fitness. And yeah, it's honestly such a blessing to be able to say that.
I love that. Me too. It's a good phase to be in, but not saying that doesn't come with like, previous challenges, but I always feel like sometimes you have to kind of feel that. One, just to have empathy for other people who struggle with it, but two, it really reminds you of like, man, I don't want to go back to there, even if it's something simple of like, I was bloated. It doesn't always have to be this major diagnosis, but just kind of knowing what that feels like and then seeing what you could be is just so motivating in and of itself. And I think that's where people ask me like, how do you stay on top of like exercising and eating healthy? Like, how do you keep doing it? I'm like, I don't know. I look back to physically, I look back to how skinny I was. I mean, everyone's built differently, no problem with that, but I knew I wanted to have like more muscle and just being thicker. And so I never want to go back and lose all of this growth that I've done. And then same with health and all the things that I kind of always got sick as a kid, just all the things. And it's just like, I never want to go back there. So just having that experience is motivating enough for me to kind of keep doing the things that I do every day.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So give us a little insight. Like, what does your morning routine look like? This is everything from like what you're eating, what you're doing, mental. I love, some people are not morning routine people. They're more nighttime, vice versa. Just what are you doing in the morning?
Okay. So my routine is like so dependent on what the other 4 people in my household are doing. And so like I still have kids young enough to where I'm probably getting woken up in the night, like at least 1 or 2 nights. And listen, my youngest is 2.5, and sometimes she has a hard time falling asleep, or, you know, the 5-year-old, 6-year-old will try to crawl in bed, just something with disrupted sleep. So I try to hold like my morning routine really loosely. And I just have kind of like pillars I like to lean back on. So everything I want to get in my morning is some sort of first thing. I want to wake up, I want to start praying about my day, and I want to just start focusing on, okay, what do I have to do? I would love to read scripture in the morning. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes it's as simple as like turning on worship while I'm like prepping breakfast. So like there's a spiritual kind of pillar and component of my mornings. I am really diligent no matter what time I wake up, that I eat within the first 30 minutes of my day, because I want to go ahead and start nourishing my body, especially before I ever consume caffeine. Which interestingly enough, I have been really digging drinking decaf coffee. I never thought I'd be that person, but like I've basically cut out alcohol and caffeine for the last like 2-3 weeks, just not even for really a reason. And I'm kind of loving it. Now, I might have like a glass of wine at Thanksgiving. I'm not going to be religious about it, but so yeah, even though I'm drinking decaf coffee, I still want to nourish my body. So I always make sure I get a good animal source protein and a carbohydrate in the morning. I just feel better when I get that.
For sure.
I've noticed like if I just do protein in the morning and then I drink coffee, like I can feel the effects of it. I feel like I need that stabilizing carb.
Well, we also lose that too, like throughout sleep. We use our glycogen because we're not obviously eating. So it's really good to just kind of replete. And same with like hydration. Like it's just good to replete from 12 hours of not.
Yes. Yeah. That's the other thing too. Like I drink a big glass of water before I drink any coffee. I like to push my coffee consumption more towards like an hour and a half of 2 hours being awake. So it
Nice.
doesn't even really fall in my morning. It's kind of like my mid morning. Another thing I like to do, it just depends. So sometimes my husband has to be at his office at like 6:30 in the morning. I don't even see him. Other times, like we wake up at 6 together and he doesn't have to be in the office till 9:30. So that's what I mean by my morning routine really flexes with the people in my house. Cause if I spend that morning coffee time with Joey, he is like my best friend, my business partner, my motivation, my like therapist, everything. Right. And so those morning coffee chats are literally life-changing for me. And, you know, I think it's the same thing for him. And so whenever we can make that happen, we make that happen. But he's the same way. Like he takes time to read his Bible and kind of get his head right and like pray over his day and do his thing. So we both have those elements. I'm not like a morning workout person. I would love to be that someday. It's always been in the evenings for me. I don't know why.
Really? I've been there. I had a phase where I was working out at night. I don't know how I did that, just because it is so different from like our cortisol. Like I'm morning, you're kind of peaking and holding on to that and utilizing that. But I've been there, and it never affected my sleep. It didn't really affect me. I don't know. I somehow swapped, and now I'm like mid morning. So I feel you. I've been in that stage for some reason. Maybe it's kids, having young kids.
I think maybe that's it. Like, and I won't, hold on to that forever. Maybe I'll start working out in the morning. I'd love to wake up at like 5 a.m. and get a workout in. But like I said,
that's not me.
Having disrupted sleep, I really prioritize good sleep because I know I have a lot of work to do during the day. So like I said, I'll eat breakfast. I'll usually like hop on my computer. Oftentimes, if I'm working on like an Instagram post, I don't really schedule a lot of content ahead of time. I am very like go with the flow in that I create the graphic for that day, write the caption for that day, and like go ahead and post or, answer a couple emails or just dive into work in that capacity. Cause my kids usually sleep until like 9-ish, at least the older ones do. So there's like usually a window where it might be just me and my youngest, and I can type on my computer while she's like playing with blocks or something. And then, during the day, the early morning, we either like hop into schoolwork or like my oldest will start baking something. Sophia's really into cooking in the kitchen. Sometimes she'll say, I want to make breakfast in the morning, like wake me up early and I'll make breakfast for the family, things like that. So it's very flexible. I don't have like a skincare routine in the morning of any kind, really just moisturizing. I use like tallow based skincare for everything. And then some days, like I don't even get dressed out of my PJs. Like I'm just working in my leggings and my
I'm with you.
And it's like, if I have to hop on Instagram, like I'll take a shower and like put myself together and like film some things. But then other than that, like it's kind of sporadic. So, but there's
Yeah.
just, it's the season I'm in and the
Yeah.
reason, like we're just hustling really hard right now and, for good reasons. And it's sustainable right now. And so I have to just hold my mornings a little bit looser than I think I will be possible in the future.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you. And I love what you mentioned, because I mean, we're all like women in power over here that are listening, but I love that you mentioned like the whole Instagram thing, because for the longest time, I was definitely like prep a week ahead, nothing too crazy, but like a week ahead. And then I started my doctorate in October, and now I've just been like, well, let me just catch my variants. I don't even know what's going on. So I haven't been posting as much at all. But I'm kind of I'm feeling like a shift towards that, of just like, if something kind of comes on to me and I want to share, I'm going to make it in the moment, share it in the moment, and be done. Like, and I'm not going to stress and obsess over like, oh my gosh, it's Sunday, I haven't prepped for the week. And just that kind of throw me off emotionally and mentally. So I love that you mentioned that, because that's the season I feel like I'm going into right now.
I feel like there's like, this is how I look at my Instagram, and maybe this is because I'm nerdy, but I feel like I am almost like the author of a daily column, like in a newspaper. Like I'm Carrie Bradshaw, right? And working on my column. And so I'm always thinking through like, what is pressing on my heart right now? Like what is getting me fired up? It might be something that happened in the news, like the fact that the FDA just approved lab-grown meat for human consumption. Like that gets me fired up, right? So like
I roll if you're just listening.
I might plan a post about that. Or it might be something to where it's like, hey, my kids have just like honestly presented me with this really interesting challenge. How am I going to combat that? And also like, what can I share with the audience about how we're processing that as a family? So I find that like, if I'm posting more kind of spontaneously, now I have rhythms in place where I post between like 10:30 and 11:30 a.m. That's like my prime time. I know Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays are my highest engagement. If I try to post something on the weekends, it falls flat. I also purposefully do a Sabbath on the weekend. So I take a full 24 hours off of stories, let all my stories expire, and then take a break. And I have noticed that my story views have increased by like 3 times by the time I hop back on.
Yeah.
There's like
100%.
Yeah, there's like really, I'm not just like, oh, I'll post at 1 p.m. and it's good to go, or like 3 o'clock. No, if I'm posting that day, it's between 10:30 and 11:30, maybe noon. And then, I want to post what's on my heart. And I do find it funny that I feel like the posts I spend the most time on, like creating, do the worst. And the posts I just throw some words up are just like popping off. And I'm like, okay, my effort is not rewarded. But you know what? Any post that's up there, I feel good about all the conversations that we kind of host on our Instagram page. So even if a post gets, just a couple hundred likes, I'm like, whatever. I love that people were here. I love that they engaged in this post. I'm going to move on, and it's no big deal.
I'm the same way. I really let go of like engagement and all that. I mean, I know it helps with like getting you shifted above in the algorithm, but honestly, if one person just saw it and made one change, that's good enough for me. Like, I don't even care at this point anymore, because it's always changing and it gets exhausting trying to keep up. Especially because a lot of us business owners, that isn't our routine, is figuring out social media and planning it out. And I do feel like definitely the ones that I'm also fired up about, what's on my heart, always is just like, always end up being the best, even though I will say I do have planned ones. I have a lot of time and effort into explaining physiology to a way that they can understand. I'm like, everyone better see this.
I know. I feel the same. And then it's like, it totally flops. And I'm just like, all right, it's okay.
It's okay. It's fine. I love that though. You're definitely in a season of like young kids and all that stuff. And so I'm such a fan of like loose morning routines for that season of life. 100%. I was the same way. And it helps so much to just reduce the stress of like what you should be doing versus like what you can do, because every day is different, especially, with school and, well, you guys homeschool, but the school and the holidays and, kids naturally pick up things a little bit more with colds and flus this time of the year. And that itself can throw everyone off.
Yes.
So do you have a more structured nighttime routine, or is it pretty much the same?
So I have things I do, like structures I put in place, but my nighttime routine is so dependent right now on like when I can get my kids to sleep. So something I always like to do is throw on my blue light blockers, especially in the winter time, like around 7 o'clock. I'm not like as diligent about it, but at least like 3 to 5 days a week, I'm trying to do that. We also try to just dim the lights. I find that like any screen time past the afternoon from my kids or myself, well, I'm working on a computer, but like TV screen time where you're just sitting and staring at a bunch of motion on the TV just excites us too much and they just can't sleep. So we try to like dim our lights, get a good nourishing dinner in, eating dinner together, and then like tons of playtime with the kids, and then just trying to burn their energy, right? And so then once they get to bed, it depends on how successful that experience was. And then I might pop on my computer every Tuesday night, like I'm uploading our podcast for Wednesday's drop. So that's a regular routine. I might sit and have a cup of tea with Joey and chat, especially like if we didn't get that time in the morning, then we try to sneak that time in at nighttime. But sometimes it's like me falling asleep in my toddler's bed. Like it's just
Yeah.
phase I'm in. I do much better if I know, okay, I have to get some work done to set my clock to 5 a.m. and wake up then, than ever try to say, hey, I'm going to squeeze something in that absolutely has a deadline in the evenings, because it's such a question mark for me. Like I
For
said,
sure.
my like skincare, because I've listened to your previous episodes, right? And like everyone has like such a skincare routine. I'm like, girl's gonna get so upset because like I barely even wash my face. I feel like I rinse. I'm just one of those people where my skin does better if I just leave it alone. Like if
Yeah.
as long as I like after I work out, I'll shower, right? And rinse, the sweat and grime off. But the second I try to do like a face mask with my daughter or like get some new cleansing oil, my face just doesn't work. Like it breaks out or it'll
Yeah.
be really dry. And I just feel like my skin does best on its own
Yeah.
when I'm not treating it topically, and also like eating really supportive foods for my
Yeah.
body. Nighttime is kind of a toss up, but it's right in there with, my kids come first in the evenings. I want to make sure that they're in bed. I want to make sure that everyone is like happy when they're going to sleep and we're not just like sobbing in our beds and
Yeah.
stressed out from the evening routine, because I'm trying to quickly hush them to get into bed. But obviously my husband's there too, but sometimes your kids just like need mom, and I'm just accepting
For
that
sure.
right now. So yeah, that's our
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. No, I understand that so much. I was always the one that was preferred, I guess.
Yes.
But I tend to I'm with you. My brain just naturally works better anyways in the morning. So and I'm a morning person. So I would much rather wake up at 5, get stuff done before everyone wakes up,
Mm-hmm.
than try to squeeze it in at night, because it is like, I don't know, lingering over your head the whole day. And I feel like I'm also thinking about it, knowing that I have to do it. And like when you're tired, like nothing sucks more than just trying to work through you being tired.
No, it's awful. So yeah,
So
if I know I have a book drop coming up, like there's been seasons where I wake up every single day at 5 a.m. and crank out 3 hours of work before the kids got up. Like
nice.
totally acceptable by me. Like everything in my life is such in these like segmented 2-week periods, I feel like, right? And that's just how we're operating, and it's kind of working, to
I
be honest.
love that. Yeah. No, are you talking about like different, like every 2 weeks it kind of changes a little bit?
2 weeks. So for instance, the other day I was like, okay, I've been so dedicated. We just launched our most recent product, and that's been so much work, like a full weekend, 2 full days of shooting just the food the recipes I wrote. Right. And then like getting all the final edits over to my printer, and then planning out the launching and all of the
Yeah.
topics. Like I don't have a team behind me. I create all the
Yeah.
creative work behind Homegrown. And so
That's awesome.
it's just a lot to pile into a short period of time. And then it's like holidays and everyone's expecting a sale,
Yeah.
right? So for
Oh,
2,
yes.
I'm like really dedicated on that. And I'm talking to Joey and I'm like, well, why am I so able to hyper focus on my work and get stuff done? But like, I feel like I lose sight of every other goal or every other area of my life. Like maybe the kids' school will fall behind, or like maybe we did, half a math lesson, but we really should have done 1.5, or like I didn't have the energy to cook that night. And then I made Joey cook when he got home. And it's like, that's exhausting. I feel like I can only hold one ball at a time. And he's like, well, part of that is true. But another piece of that is like, you have a really specific goal you're working towards right now, which is the launch of What's for Breakfast. If you were to set really specific goals for your other things, you might be more focused in them. So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, fine. I'm going to every single day. I started this last Friday. every single day we have a rowing machine. I'm going to either row for 20 minutes and or burn 200 calories on the rower, whichever one happens first, just to get some cardio in. Like I just want a little bit of 20 minutes of like some, basic cardio. And then I'm going to do some weight training. I'm going to do like deadlifts, bench press, and some free weights every day. Move my body because I'm working so hard on my computer. And it's like, guess what? I've worked out every single day the last like 5 days because I set this tiny micro goal. And I'm realizing like I get overwhelmed if I have to look 6 months in the future and say like, did I work out 5 days a week? I'm not sure. But if I'm setting these micro goals, I'm tackling them much better. Like I must just need that quick response of like, oh, I can do it. It's almost like I prove it to myself first. But that's working way better for me than ever saying, hey, in 3 months, I hope to get to a place where I'm regularly working out 4 days a week. Okay, that's so ambiguous for me. I can't work on that kind of model. I need something shorter, quicker, and more consistent. So
I'm with you. I think my brain also works in that shorter time span. So whether it's daily, weekly, maybe a couple months, but my husband works like in years. So he's like super long span. I'm like, I mean, I think it's a little fuzzy. I know the basis of everything, but definitely not like the details to get there. I'm definitely more like you, like focused on like, what can I do today? And then by the end of the month, I'm like, oh dang, like got a lot done, achieved a lot. I know you shared with us your breakfast. So what's your go-tos for like lunches and dinners and or snacks in between?
Yeah. Okay. So lunch and dinner always like, again, prioritizing animal source protein. Usually lunch will be like a salad I buy like these canned trout with dill kind of mixed into it. And like, it almost serves as like a dressing on the salad. So I don't even have to add anything, just a big bowl of greens, which I'm not like, trust me, I'm all about nutrient dense animal source foods. I'm not like, eat your kale. Like I just eat a salad because it's quick and easy and I don't have to cook it. But throwing like canned fish over a salad with like olives to get some extra fat and maybe some cheese in there, or heating up last night's leftovers, or, I'm big into the chef salad too. So it just kind of changes with the season and also something quick that I can grab, because my actual afternoons, like my time from I'd say 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. are the busiest times that I have. And I'm actually working a ton in there. And also trying to like get the girls, get one down for a nap and facilitate like play with the other girls, and then make sure we're getting our schoolwork done. And it's like the afternoon is my busiest period. And so it's actually way easier for me to get dinner on the table than it is for me to get lunch out. And sometimes it is like, hey, my oldest kid, can you go ahead and like get lunches out for the girls? Or like they make, this sounds crazy, but they make all beef, grass-fed, organic hot dogs. And it's like hot dogs,
oh my gosh,
100% hot dogs for lunch, because my kids will eat it. It's a good protein. It's 100% grass-fed organic beef. I have no qualms about it. No issues. I don't know why like all of these, I do actually know why all these meats got a bad rap. But so like I don't feel weird at all about that. I might take
me either.
Some really good like salamis or like cured meats. I have a couple brands that I really like, and just like snack on those with cheese and olives too. Like really easy, simple, snacky lunches. And then dinners are hearty. Like last night we had biscuits and gravy that Sophia made, and like pan fried chicken thighs. So like the skin got really crispy. They weren't breaded or anything, but like the skin just was really crispy and the fat rendered out. And it was just really juicy, delicious chicken and green beans. Like that was a very country style dinner. But sometimes it's like a big pot of white chicken chili or tacos. Like, gosh, we love tacos in our household. So yeah, it's like any of those meals. Dinner is really hearty. Snacks are usually fruit and or like a beef stick if I need protein, or a hard-boiled egg if I need protein. And so, yeah, it's just really simple whole ingredient foods, but I'm always focused on getting my protein in, just because I would so much more naturally lean for carbs. I'm just like carb me up.
For sure.
Yeah, grains and fruit. And so I just have to be a little bit more diligent. And I think that's everyone, right? I think that's everyone. Say, like protein is a little bit of an effort to make sure we're hitting our mark there. But I feel better.
For sure. Oh my gosh. I'm with you. Lunch is the hardest. And I think it's just because it's smack dab in the middle. So like honestly, light leftovers are king. King. I I don't know. I guess my go-to is like a tuna salad. Like you, like just something like really simple protein. Sometimes I'll eat it like with like Simple Mills crackers and some fruit and whatnot. But I would say that's my go-to if I don't have leftovers, but I always try to have leftovers and just try to make more for dinner because our dinners are like yours, very hearty and full. So I always try to make an extra serving or two because I know that I'll just need it the next day. I also just don't want to be thinking about like food in the middle of a work day when I'm like running around. I just want it to be there, done, just eat, consume.
Yeah, I agree. If I could skip a meal without any health repercussions, it would be lunch. Like lunch stresses me out.
Yeah,
Breakfast and dinner I love, but I obviously make sure I don't skip lunch. And if I do, then I can definitely feel the difference the next day or
for
that
sure.
I'm
For
like, wow,
sure.
I'm undernourished. Definitely. So
For sure. I know it's always hard for me too, because I have to do like 3 meals a day plus a protein shake. Just like you said, just to make sure I'm getting enough protein because most women aren't. And that's with like 3 hearty amounts of animal proteins, but I'm also lifting a lot and all that stuff. So, I'm definitely creating a demand for it, but still I'm like, I don't know how people like only eat 2 meals a day. Like there's no way, there's absolutely no way you're getting enough.
I agree. And you know what? I used to be that person. Like I used to fall into the trap of intermittent fasting because honestly, it was just an excuse to skip breakfast.
Mhm.
Like, oh, well, there's all these articles that point to like how this is good for my gut. And then I had to kind of like relearn that, hey, I'm a woman in my fertile ages, and that's probably
Yes.
not best for my metabolism right now. And then, you know what? I wake up every day and I'm so hungry. Like I
So
wake up,
good.
which is so good. I used to never be hungry when I woke up. Every day I'm like, oh, praise the Lord. Like I'm hungry again. I'm ready for my food. I eat right away. And then it is, I used to skip those meals. But the thing is, I wasn't asking enough of my body. Like I wasn't moving enough. I
Mhm.
wasn't, you know, being as diligent about my exercise, even if it's just walking up and down my street or weight training and
Yeah.
gaining muscle. I just wasn't doing that. And I think most people, if they were to ask more from their bodies
Yeah.
and they were to lean into their true capacity, because I think we're way more capable than we think we are, then they would start to feel their nutrient needs increase and they would
Oh
realize like,
yeah.
oh, wow, I'm under eating. So
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
don't just start out by like, oh, I'm under eating, I need to eat a bunch more. Like you should start with the lifestyle flip, right? Start asking
Yes.
about your body. Walk for 20 minutes a
Yeah.
day. Wow, I need a snack. Or one thing I used to do in the mornings, if I didn't feel hungry yet, I'd go for a quick walk outside. So I'd also be getting my morning sunlight in.
Mm.
And you know what? I'd feel hungry when I got back in the door. So it's like that early morning movement was really helpful for stimulating some of those hunger cues that I was lacking before I trained my body to
Yeah.
really crave food in the morning time. So
Oh, yeah. There's no way if you were like lifting and demanding that, there's no way you would be not more hungry. Unless no way. I know that. Even I can just like finish a protein packed smoothie and like within 30 minutes or an hour, I'm like hungry again. And I love it. Because it is really tough to kind of overcome that when you know you do need to eat more, but you just don't want to. But I mean, their bodies are so used to what they're consuming and like, yeah, with more demand and then just slowly increasing it, like eventually you kind of get to that point where you need to be, but I love food. So,
me, me too.
what are your favorite meals or like 2, 3 meals that you absolutely love in rotation? I'm going to assume tacos is probably one of them, but are there any other meals that you love?
Tacos are for sure one of them. Actually, we love tacos so much, and we used to make them in our apartment with like this really amazing cabbage slaw. That's the kicker. That now that my
Mm.
husband like runs a creative meeting space that has a catering arm to it, like Taco Bar is one of their food offerings. So I'm always like, I feel like I should get a little bit of credit for your catering. But so tacos are huge. Anything like one pot wonder, like I make a really amazing like curry fried rice or like a big pot of soup, hearty soup, like a traditional chili or a white chicken chili. Those are amazing. But my kind of like must-haves are more individualized. Like my sourdough starter is, queen of my kitchen, and my raw milk is like number one. Like I was so sad this week because I didn't realize I didn't place the order for my farm and my
Oh
house
no.
drop off. So like they come to me And I looked for my name on the list. I was like, why don't I see my name? And then I looked at my order history and was like, I didn't place an order. So I have no raw milk for this week. And I'm like, I
On
can drive out.
Thanksgiving.
I know. So, luckily I can drive out to the store and buy a low temp pasteurized, non-homogenized milk, which is like the next best thing because it's minimally processed, but it's nowhere near my raw
Not the
dairy.
same.
I live in Ohio, so like it's not really bought in retail stores. Maybe someday it will be, but yeah. So my raw milk and my sourdough, like everything stems from those two things. So those are my main foods like that I would love, but also the meals I mentioned before.
Okay, nice. And I know you mentioned you loved having a little bit of cardio. Are there any other like favorite exercises that you do? And even outside of the season of life, like let's say like your kids are older and that's not an issue, like what would be your go-to exercise?
Oh, okay. So I know you don't love running, and I know you're like, you will never catch me doing that. Like if you see me running, something's wrong. But
Yes.
I
Help
will
me.
say, like, there is nothing that pushes me more mentally than going on a long run. And by long run, I mean like 4 miles. Like
That's
four
long.
4 miles. So, it's not long because my husband runs like 18 miles and he's training for a marathon. And so anytime I compare myself to him, it's like, he's like, I just want to go for a quick 4 mile run. And I'm like, be careful when you use the word quick, because some of us run 4 miles and it
That's
takes an
That's
hour.
too long. That's
Okay.
4 miles is too long. Okay. A short run is a half a mile.
A half mile. But I will say, like, the mental stretching that I feel when I'm on a run and I'm like, I hate this. And this is my other thing too, is like, I believe that if you're going to be a runner and you're going to run more than a mile, you have to understand your running form. And like, I run on my toes. I never land on my heels unless I'm going downhill. I'm making sure like my core is engaged. Like I am running responsibly so that I'm not shredding my knees, and my calf muscles are taking the brunt of the impact, because your muscle is designed to deteriorate and build back up, but we're not going to rebuild any joints, right?
Yeah.
So if my knee is taking all the impact, then yeah, of course my tendons and all of that are going to be suffering afterwards. And I think that's why running gets a bad rep, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's so bad on your knees and hips. And I want to be like, listen, humans are so capable. You're probably just running wrong. You need to have the right shoes. I do not run on sidewalks. I only run on the street because the sidewalks are just so much harder on your joints than on the actual asphalt. And so like, there's just little things in there. So I'm on my run. I'm like, I can't let my form go. So I'm mentally staying on. I'm always like, I'm running the opposite direction of my house. So I'm not even anywhere close to being done. Right. So I'm pushing my mind, my body this whole way. A lot of times, like I'm praying while I'm running, or I'm, like asking God to like, hey, join me on this run right now because I need some help, like push me to the end. So I love running for that. I also love, so my brother and sister-in-law moved 2 houses down from us, and they have like a whole like CrossFit gym basically in their garage. And so
Nice.
they are, while I don't do CrossFit, like we do weight training together. And so like I love doing the weight training with them in a group setting. I think that's really fun. Like such a blessing to live near family, to be able to say like, hey girls, we're going to go be working outside at, Kyle and Chloe's house, and, we'll be back. And the girls are like, okay. And it's awesome. So group workouts, like I said, weight training, but like running, it has a special place in my heart because it's just the only thing that pushes me like that. Like being on a rower to me is so boring and doesn't push me, because I know I can end at any point. I know I can stop. But if I'm on a run, I have to run home. And so that's kind of the thing that
Nice. Yeah.
getting me going.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And really great tip for running and form and stuff. I'm not a runner, so I have no idea what the correct form is, but that's really good to know, because you are probably right that that is one of the main reasons why people end up not having the best knees, and not really feeling great in the long term. I think probably the same thing could be said with self weight training as well, because a lot of us are just kind of trying to mimic what we're seeing, on social media and wherever else you get your workouts. And so I think that's why having a personal trainer or someone that's seasoned in fitness, if you're a beginner, just to kind of walk you through like what form should be, so you're not hurting yourself and waking up with, well, it's okay to wake up sore, but like the wrong type of sore where you like pull something or do something bad. So yeah, I love that you shared that. Do you have any favorite like mental health tools or self-development books or podcasts that you lean on, or even fun podcasts too? Because I like, having a little bit of a break from all the always like learning and self-educating. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to learn at all anymore. Like, give me something fun.
Okay, so I'm bad at that because right now I'm just like, give me all the books. Like if I'm
Just
not
learning.
something, I don't want to even read it. There are a couple, like it sounds odd, but there are a couple pivotal episodes that I've listened to that have been so groundbreaking that I don't even listen to the full podcast or
Mm.
like the full series, but the learnings I got from those episodes were just like killer. So for me, when I think of mental health, like the more I can remind myself that it's my personal responsibility to hold every thought captive, like is so helpful. And I'm trying to also teach my daughters that because I think it's really easy to see, especially kids like in that puberty, like preteen age, start to just spiral with their thoughts. And we have to train them, right? Like you can hold every thought captive. You are responsible for like saying, "And that's a lie. I reject that." Or let me sit on this and feel like what about that scenario made me feel this way and talk through it and not just like simmer in it. Right. So honestly, like I'm a big Jocko Willink fan, which like I know he's like all for the dudes. He's a retired Navy SEAL, but some of his episodes on his podcast called the Jocko Podcast, they're like 5 hours long. They're intense, right?
Whoa.
He's like a friend of Joe Rogan. He's a very big man in the leadership space. And for that reason, like my husband listens to the podcast. And so when he finds a really good episode, he'll pass it on to me. So there was a fantastic episode that Jocko Willink did with Andrew Huberman, who is a American neuroscientist at Stanford University of Medicine. And that is one of those 5-hour episodes, but I'm telling you, it is worth the listen because if you can listen, I broke it up into days. But if you can listen to the Jocko Willink, Andrew Huberman episode where he's talking through basically our own personal responsibility and ability to like impact our health. Like we are not just victims to our mental health or the way that our body is feeling. There are real things we can do every single day. And he talks about like he does the nitty gritty of his morning routine, his daytime routine, and his eating. And so it's like, that is a fantastic episode that I will continue probably re-listening to every 6 months because not only is he like super nerdy and gives you all the background information onto like what your actual like cortisol and dopamine levels are doing when you're doing specific things, but he's also sharing like how he practically does it. And I love that episode. I love him. The first like introduction to mental health and not even mental health, but like daily discipline. I was like an early adopter to like the Rachel Hollis movement, right? And I read like both of her books and I was sad to see that she kind of went a different way, but some of those principles in there, like from her early writings, I felt like they really helped me in a time of need. Like I actually did her journaling and I really love the fact that you start, every day writing 5 things that you're grateful for. And then you write 10 goals that you want to see happen. And then I liked some of those components. I'm sad for her current state, but
Me too.
I did really like, I felt like I got some good tangible takeaways from her 2 earlier books. And so, yeah.
I agree. I don't know if I would say an early adopter, but I definitely remember listening to it on Audible. I loved it. I loved it. I don't know, maybe it was her first one, like her first nonfiction one. I know she has some fiction ones.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And then, yeah, I think everything just came tumbling down when they got divorced, which, obviously it is what it is. No one's perfect, but I think sometimes when you're promoting things that are showing that you have this like great marriage and then you end up getting divorced like a year later, I'm like, that just feels weird. So I definitely stepped down from, I don't even think I follow her on social media anymore. So it was unfortunate because I felt like I did. I also felt like I related so much to that. And I thought it was funny and all that. So I'll definitely put in the resources, but I feel the same.
I did too. And you know what? Here's the thing. It was a really good reminder for me that while she can be really disciplined and really interested in like self-development and self-growth, like I never want to put that above my relationship with my husband or my relationship with the Lord, frankly. And so it's just like, it's a really clear example, unfortunately, publicly so, of what it means to like be so focused on self that your other relationships fall away.
100%.
I don't know what happened with them, but
Yeah. Oh, I
goodness,
love that.
yeah, I never want to pursue my own like, and that was the language that they were both using. And that's the
Yeah.
thing is like they both recorded podcasts right after the divorce announcement. And they both were like, we're just trying to find the best versions of ourselves. And I was like, that's the reason why
Exactly.
you guys are not together, because you're
Marriage
both
is together.
inward. And so it's like,
Yes.
I don't use that language. I don't say like, I'm trying to be the best version of myself or I'm trying to whatever. I want to like see my family unit thrive as a group. And I want to take part in that. And I want to serve my family well. I'd rather say that than ever say I'm trying to be the best version of myself. So I even think like take 95% of her words and just tweak it a tiny bit and you've got something good. But she was lacking critically in that understanding of like life is not all about her and it should have never been all about her and it's not about him either. And so I think maybe that was one of their downfalls, but again, outsider, I don't know, but
I know. Well, I mean, that's to say, like, even with these routines and habits and things that we do to benefit our health, whether it's mental and physical, we are, well, some of us, you might be single, that's obviously different. But if you're married and you have kids, you are a unit, you are one as a marriage, you are one. There's no like, I think you described it way better than I can, but that's exactly how I was mentally feeling throughout all of that.
I kind of took it personally. Like I felt that
I took it personally. And
I feel
I'm thankful I actually never purchased a ticket, but we were talking about it, especially because they were like in Austin and stuff like that. And so I'm like, heck yeah. And I don't know, I lost a lot of respect. And again, that sucks because I thought her stuff with self-development was so awesome. Even though I definitely had quite a few peers that were like, and especially in the Christian world, like be careful. And I understood what they were saying as well. But I think it sucks because I don't know, to look up to someone and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, never mind. I should not be looking up to you because obviously the fruit on the tree is not there if, certain things are happening. I know there's all these conspiracy theorists too with not saying that they're actually not true. They could be true, but of just all the different things, when people get famous and make money and just all the connections that they have. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just sad to see that because I agree. I was listening to the podcast and reading the books and it was great.
I was listening every week and read the books. And I would say like my husband is a huge part of my mental health, like rhythms, like our conversation. We talk everything out and we're just very open. There's no like, oh, I feel like I can't talk to my husband about this. Or even when I'm like, hey, something is bothering me and it's bothering me that it's bothering me. It feels like a very catty, annoying feeling in my heart. But like, why does this stress me out so much? And that's the beauty of being married, right? Is because like he can look and provide an outside perspective, but he knows me so well that he can say like, hey, babe, this is probably how it's coming off to you, but I know that person as well. And I think this is probably what's happening in their life. And that's why they're responding that way. And he's like, so if there's any way you can find like in your heart to understand that piece or maybe like let it go here. And even though, and I do the same thing for him, I hope he feels that way, but it's just like, so often it's like, what's your best podcast, book, whatever. And I love those things too. But also like we should be training ourselves to rely on our spouse for our mental health, I believe, because they're our freaking partner, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an asset that we are given when we like sign the marriage document or it should be, or if that's something we should aspire our relationships to be. But I also do love podcasts and books and all of those external media because those can influence how we interact with our spouse. So it's all good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely say that, or is that, no, they say that for kids. They're like, your kid should be your best friend. Because, they're the same, but I'm like, whatever, then you have a second relationship. Because I'm just kidding. My kids are not my best friends, of course, but they are like, I always joke, we're all roommates. We obviously are very different in our family unit as well. I call my son bro, like we are just very different, I think, than your typical like parent and children. But I hope that it's kind of shifting in the way that even how I raise the kids, because I do see the separation between like kids and how as they grow, they kind of separate from parents and they don't trust them and they tell them like, they keep things from them. And I see it so differently. Obviously my son's only 12, so come at me in like 5 years. I'll let you know if it like actually works out. But so far it's trending in such a good, tight way. And I think it's just because we are communicating and we are being examples of who we want them to be with our habits, and we're influencing them, but also just being real with them. I know this is like totally going off topic, but I think it's really important to at least for people who have families, know that, I don't know, self-development really doesn't mean crap if the people close to you, it's suffering.
Totally. Joey and I were talking this morning that like 95% of your escalations with your kids can be escalated with just like some lighthearted goofiness. Like if you can just bring it back to like, hey, we all love each other. Like this is silly, or like crack a joke or something. It's amazing how much tension can just vanish. And it's like, why we don't use that as a parenting tool more often, because I think we've been fed this, like, you need to be authoritative and you need to be friends. I just don't buy into that. Like I buy into respect, but I respect my friends and I respect my husband who's my peer, but doesn't mean that we can't also have fun together. So it's I like that you're kind of flipping the script on that too. It also probably helps because like we both had our kids relatively young. And so we have that closeness with them. And there's just a bond there. We've been, parents for over a decade, which is like insane, right? When you think about it, but there's so much growing there. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of parents, and yes, I do think that being a young parent helped develop this. And obviously the older you are, maybe there is so much more space between when you were a kid that you kind of don't remember. But I think parents tend to forget how we were as teens and kids and how we thought and how important things were to us. And like, even if it's something simple like clothing, which your kids homeschool, so you might not have this as much, but when you go to school and all the kids are wearing the cool clothes or the cool things. And, I remember my parents would be like, no, it's so expensive. Like you don't need Hollister or Abercrombie. That's stupid. But to me, that was a big deal because that was, I remember my therapist saying it all comes down to, are you going to be kicked out of the tribe, the community or not? And so it's funny because that was such a big importance, even though it is stupid, but it was a big importance. But if a parent just put themselves in like, oh man, I remember that, like you kind of felt like out of the tribe if you didn't have like, a name brand shirt, again, really stupid, but in their eyes, it is a big deal because it will push them out of the tribe, or it can, which is again, stupid. But I think we just tend to forget what it was like as kids. And so I think when you are a younger parent, it's not that long ago that I was there too. So I think it's just easy to like relate and kind of get on that level. And I think that just earns respect from your kids because they're like, oh, they're not being this like authoritative, not saying that I don't have authority, but the super authoritative parent where they just don't understand. Like it's more, oh, they do understand. Oh, this is like their experience. Oh, this is what they did. This is how they felt. Oh, that's so similar to me. And just create such a tight connection that it gives you just leverage in the future to actually influence them about making like a good decision in a very serious situation or topic.
There's this, I know we're like on a tangent, but there's this concept called the indirect approach. And it's by Jocko Willink. Like I'm telling you, I love him, but it's indirect approach. And he talks about this thing called leadership capital. And we all have certain amounts of leadership capital within our different relationships. It's just like financial capital, like health capital, any other thing. It can go positive or negative. And his thing that he kind of adopted from his time as a SEAL was like, hey, the more you have to take a direct approach and literally say the words, I want you to go do this. He's like, that is spending money from your leadership bank account. You are losing, you are withdrawing every time you have to say the words and go directly. And so he talks about this and he gives examples because he obviously leads a bunch of companies. And so he's got a lot of employees and team members that he has to interact with in a leadership capacity, but he's not the micromanaging. I'm going to tell you this, and this. He goes through an indirect approach. And for me, I was like, okay, how do I adopt that as a parent? And it's so much less like, I need you to do this, and this, and more, hey, let's together, you and I, we're going to prep our house because we're going to host guests this weekend. And so we want to make sure that this thing looks great. And you know what? You give them a task and they're like, oh my gosh, my cousin's coming in town. And their room will be so freaking clean because they're seeing you lead by example. You're not saying like, you better clean your room before your cousin gets here or else I'm going to not give you dessert or like some kind of weird crap, right? So instead taking this kind of indirect approach, and then that whole concept was really mimicked in a book that I read recently called Hunt, Gather, Parent, which talks about different hunter-gatherer societies and how they parent through like storytelling and leading by example. And they almost hardly ever give like actual directives to their kids, and their kids are happier, way more self-sustained as teenagers and young adults. And it's just really fascinating to like break through the American version of like, especially like in the Christian world of parenting of like, you need to do this, 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 and this, and take a more indirect approach. Definitely not wavering on the values and things that we want to instill in our kids, but just turning it a tiny bit. And so those two resources have been super helpful in my understanding.
Oh, I love that. No, I know we went off on a tangent, but I feel like it is very important because I know that if, like I said, the family unit, if that's kind of broken, I'm going to feel broken, and I can do all the things to benefit me, kind of like our example with Rachel, me, but that's ultimately at the end of the day, it's not all about me. It's about the people that are close to you and stuff that you love. So I fully welcome this tangent. So yes, share with us where we can find you, where people can connect with you, social media, website, what do you have going on, offers, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So you can find us on Instagram. We're at homegrown_education. My personal account is at Liz Haselmayer. And so you can find me either place. I answer my DMs way more on my personal account just because my business kind of page is like flooded. Right. But yeah, we talk about all things like raw dairy, sourdough, real food, our children's nutrition curriculum, our meal plans, all the stuff. And our Instagram page is much less of a product page, even though that's technically what it is. It's more just educational. So we're just facilitating conversations all the time about, hey, what is this anti-meat dogma going on we see with this mainstream media? What's happening in the world of agriculture? We also have a podcast called the Homegrown Podcast, and we do the same thing there. We talk about the truth behind food and farming, and those two are such hot topics, especially right now.
Yes.
Should we eat meat? Should we not eat meat? What's the environment doing? all the fun things. And so the Homegrown Podcast, that's on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places you can tune in. Our website is homegrowneducation.org, and you can find all of our products on there. Like I said, we just launched a What's for Breakfast, which is like a 2-week meal plan with over 20 recipes, and it's all using the staples you already have in your house. So I'm all about like just keeping a stocked kitchen and pantry, very minimal, like butter, eggs, flour, milk. And like, what can we turn those into nourishing breakfast? Everything has an animal source protein. Everything has a carbohydrate, good amount of fat. And I'm giving you cues for like the days ahead. So we might have a little bit of weekend prep, but like your Monday through Friday will go so smoothly, like 10 minutes or less on breakfast. If you just follow this kind of meal plan. So those are all of our things. We are doing a bundle right now, where if you buy 2 or more items, you can get 15% off just by using the code HOLIDAY. And that's good till the end of the year. So I don't know when this episode drops, but if it's sometime in 2022, then you can use that code HOLIDAY.
Nice. And then I know you gave us a link too for a free raw dairy guide as well, and sourdough guide, right?
Yes. Grab those. Those are free resources that are awesome.
Awesome. Well, I'm so appreciative of your time and just hanging out again together. We'll end it with a little lightning round of questions. It's just either or. And then we'll say sayonara. So the first one will be coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee every time.
Oh, so you're a coffee girl through and through.
Through and through. I love tea, but coffee, if I have
wins.
Coffee wins every time.
Dark chocolate or milk chocolate?
Dark chocolate, not even a comparison.
I know. Agreed. Cold weather or warm weather?
Ooh, I like both. I love skiing and like sledding down my hill. So I can do both. honestly.
Okay. I'm about to say it's funny because I always hear people up north, they'll be like warm weather. I'm like, then what are you doing in like a northern
No,
state?
I love the winters.
Me too. I love cold.
Sledding with my kids is so fun. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. A sweater or hoodie?
Sweater.
Okay. And last but not least, queso. And let's assume it's with like good cheese. Queso or guac?
Ooh, queso every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you, Liz.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. Love chatting with you always.